We're using microphones not only for you, but basically also for the television. Well, I think it's on.
Is the lights on?
Yep, the light's on, so we're here.
Okay.
I want to wish you all a good evening and welcome you to the annual League of Women Voters Candidates Night. My name is Ruth Race. I'm a resident of Groveland on Nichols Way. And I'm a member of the Boxford-Topsfield-Middleton League of Women Voters, which I joined in 1960 when we moved to the area.
You were 10, right?
I was 10, yes. Don't listen to him. But while I'm here in Groveland, I also feel very much a part of the Greater Haverhill League of Women Voters.
Excuse me, the mic is not on.
We can't hear you.
It's
not amplifying, it's different over
It's
here.
not amplifying, okay? I'll use my school teacher voice and I can really get at you. See, before I introduce you to the moderator this evening, I want to remind you that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose any candidate for elective office. It does, however, support or oppose issues on which members have made in-depth studies and on which they have reached consensus. In order to maintain our nonpartisan, neutral atmosphere, we recommend or request that you have no campaign materials used in the hall. We also request that you save your applause until all of the candidates in a particular group have spoken. So now I'm pleased to introduce Ann Cobley, who is the president of the North Andover League of Women Voters, as our moderator for the evening. Thank you, Ann, very much.
Thank you very much.
Now, we'll see how it works there.
Okay, hi, everybody. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
You may have, no, they can't hear you.
Okay, I have a little bit of a soft-spoken voice, so I'll try to speak up. If you can't hear me, remind me to keep my voice level up. So I've been active with the League for a number of years, and I really appreciate the opportunity to participate in democracy. This microphone actually does not amplify in this room. This is just to broadcast for the cable station. So,
It's time for Groveland to get new microphones, I guess.
yeah, I know I've run into this situation before, and I try my best. I just don't have a really big voice, so I apologize in advance. So, alrighty, I know we have a number of races to cover. We'll try to do it as expeditiously as possible, but we are going to, I'm sure, have a number of questions. We will try to cover as much ground as possible. And in order to do that, we want to cover a few ground rules so that we make sure we do this all in an orderly fashion so we can accomplish as much as we can. So let's start by mentioning for the candidates, they will have up to 2 minutes for opening and closing statements as well as responses to the questions. And at my discretion, there may be additional rebuttal and clarification periods. We may allow those to take place during the discussion, or perhaps we'll attach that to the closing statements. We'll just have to judge as the conversations are flowing. Those rebuttals or clarifications will be used to clarify something that either the candidate has said or perhaps something that the other candidate has mentioned. We have a timekeeper sitting in the front row, so candidates, will you try to adhere. The timekeeper will have a time card that at 1 minute he will flash the card and signifying that you have 1 minute left, and then at 30-second intervals, and then when he says flashes the time card for stop, we do request that you stop, and I will ask you to move on so that we can have the next person. We do respectfully request that there are no personal references to any particular candidate, and if there is so, I will call that out of order. This forum is being broadcast live, so we do ask you please to silence your cell phones and beepers or any such thing. And please, speak up. We are taking questions verbally from the audience today. Nothing's done on cards or anything, so I understand the room is mic'd for sound, so please make sure that the folks at home, and when this is rebroadcast, we do want to make sure everybody has the benefit of hearing your questions. The channels are for the cable station and Channel 9 and Channel 22. So I would suggest that if you have friends and family who can't see this tonight, that you consult the local cable station website for programming.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, let's see if there's anything else. All right, so if the audience would try your best to hold your applause or cheering and clapping for the end, that will help us just keep the program moving, because as again, we have a lot of people, a lot of questions I'm sure we want to get through. Because of our nonpartisan environment the league promotes, we do ask, I'm going to reiterate what Ruth said, if there's any, we request that there be no campaign literature or apparel or signs of any nature. And the questions, when you pose your questions, please do pose it in a manner so that it is being addressed to all candidates for that office that's being, for being contested at that point. We want to try to avoid a question being addressed to one particular individual. So, all right. I think at this point we are ready to get started. We are going to start with the contested races first. And it may be the situation that if we have some races that are contested, but we don't have all of the candidates here, because of FCC regulations, FEC regulations, and IRS regulations, we are not allowed to have what's called an empty seat. So we're not allowed to broadcast that over the airwaves. But if there is a single individual who is here running for that race, we do want to give them an opportunity to speak and address the group. So we will unfortunately have to push that off to the end of the program once we've concluded the taping. So I will ask you that once we've wrapped up the broadcast portion of the program, if you would remain seated, if we have any of those candidates in the room tonight, if you'd just be patient, and then we will let them make a statement. So trying to be fair to everybody. Okay, so we're going to get started with the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, join us up here.
If you would all come on up.
Will you not sing the housing authority? People were not going to be able to. She will say, mention that later.
Okay. You'll have to forgive me because I don't know who's who. I only got names.
I'm Joe Demore.
Joe Demore.
This is Mrs. Greening.
Okay, yes, I must have.
Anthony Dalton.
Thank you very much.
You know what, I already knew I was Kathy, right?
Yeah,
It
right.
wasn't too hard, huh?
There was only one lady's name, Sarah, so, all righty. So let's see.
The vote is for you. The vote is for you. if you want.
Thank you.
They've got the mic down here now
Okay, we
for
have,
their opening
Is this-
speeches.
right, so we're gonna start with the 2-minute opening statements. And I believe what we're going to do is go in alphabetical order.
Mr. Dalton,
So Mr. Dalton will go first.
and you want to
Thank
hand
you.
him the microphone?
Right.
I can do, it's all right if I just set it down?
I
think it should-
think
I think
it's
it should be
better if
okay.
you need to hold
Just to
it,
be on the safe side.
Okay.
right, so,
No, that's all right.
yes.
I think I can manage.
When you're a candidate, you have to get used to these things.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. I'd like to thank the Women's League of Voters for hosting the candidates tonight, and especially Mrs. Graney here for having the courage as a woman to step forward and run for the position.
Thank you.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Anthony Dalton. I live in town here for just over 10 years. I live with my wife Tracy. I have 4 children that live at home. I also have an in-law apartment with my mother and my grandmother who stay with us. I've been working, just to give you a little background on kind of my work. So I've been working in the financial services industry for just over 16 years. I handle some of my company's top clients in our financial and healthcare verticals. That's pretty much it.
Okay, so if, Mr. Demore, if you would go next, please.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you to the League of Women's Voters. I want to thank everyone also for attending tonight. This is a wonderful opportunity to get to know the candidates. My name is Joe Demore. I've lived here for about 24 years, and I've been married, happily married for a little bit longer than that. We have 4 children. As many of you know, I'm very heavily invested in the community. I've been coaching for 10 years. I have a television show that I do with high school kids called Groveland Chronicles, and we're having a lot of fun exploring our town and getting to know our history. It's been really a passionate project for me, something that I've been very interested in doing. I also am a financial advisor. I've been a financial advisor for 13 years, and prior to that I had a catering business for 22 years. We did mostly weddings. And it was a family business, and my mother told me that we should get out of it after so many years because we noticed that we were doing a lot of second weddings, and she thought that was a good point of time to leave. But at any rate, my wife is a pharmacist. We both work. We've raised 4 children. And I'm running for the same reasons that my candidates here to my left are running for. We love this town. We want to do what's right. But the most important thing that I bring to this seat is probably something that is very unique to me, and that is I have absolutely no conflict of interest of any kind. I don't own any property or have any property or financial or personal interest that would get in the way of making any important decision in this town, and that's something that we need on the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us tonight. Thank you all for attending. For those
Hold
who
your
don't
mic up.
know me,
The speaker.
my name is Kathy Graney, and I am currently also running for the open seat on the Board of Selectmen. I grew up in this town. My family lives in this town. My brother does sit on the Board of Selectmen. My grandson is in this town. My mother and I love this town, and I'm nervous, can you tell? Groveland has always been important to me. My grandfather moved here and raised his family. He was very proud of this community, was also committed to this community. He was very active in the community, as well as my brother and my son-in-law. So Groveland is extremely important to me. I've retired after 30 years with Verizon, worked in a multitude of union and non-union jobs, and truly believe in teamwork, and I believe that this town will continue to be wonderful.
Great, thank you. All right, now it's time to begin our questions. And I'm going to ask that everyone, if you would try to be as succinct as possible. If you appear to need help formulating your question, I will help you. And let's see. And I guess we'll just if you raise your hand, we'll just start going throughout the room. First hand I see right here in the front.
Can the candidates tell
Do
us
yourself,
what
please.
improvements you
Oh.
see?
Give your name.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I forgot one instruction. We do want to ask if you would identify yourself as a resident and your
Sure.
name.
Just my name, Michael Dempsey.
Thank you.
Can the candidates tell us what improvements we might see here at Town Hall if they were elected?
Okay, and I do have an alternating order, so
Okay.
I will help you, we'll stay in order. So Mr. Dalton's going to answer the question first.
Thank you very much. As a member of the Board of Selectmen, my commitment is 100% to the town. Some of the improvements that I'd be looking to make is educating some of the boards and some of the leadership that's currently in this town, because as of late, it seems some decisions are being made and they're not thinking outside the box as far as the impact that it has on the town and the taxpayers within the town. I'd like to implement potentially for some of those boards some educational programs. I'm very nervous, I'm sorry. Just so they understand and just a more of an outside the, kind of out of the box approach, just to get things moving in the right direction. I think lately some of the stuff that's been out there, I know a lot of people have applied for some different permits and things of that nature, and it's just, I don't feel that some of these folks are being treated fairly.
That's what the others want to
Oh.
answer.
Are you all set? Okay, so Mr. Demore, you want to
Yes,
address
thank
the
you.
question?
Michael, that's a very good question. I spent 6 years on the school committee And in all 6 years, I heard every grievance ever submitted to the school committee from teachers and staff. And in fact, we also received complaints over those years from people in the community that had issues with the administration. And I was very proud to tell you that I designed and helped implement with my school committee the standing policies and procedures that we have today, where people that have complaints against our school committee or the school administration would have a way to process that. I'm also very proud to tell you that even though it's contingent to the fact that we have a new superintendent, we now have reduced our legal bills from $10,000 a month to around $1,800 a month. What I'm bringing to the Board of Selectmen is something that comes from my experience. When you pay attention to what's going on in town, you'll see that people have lost the ability to talk to one another. They lead discussions with lawyers. They come to meetings demanding things and angry. And so what I will bring to this Board of Selectmen is a fresh new voice and an enthusiasm and an invitation for people to work out their differences and find resolution and stop fighting.
Ms. Rainey?
Thank you. I'm not really sure of all the issues and where we need to have improvement. However, I think we do need to improve on how we communicate. And I think that's one thing that's extremely important. And hopefully I can bring that forward.
Thank you. All right, do we have another question? I'm sure we must have more.
That's it.
In the back of the room?
Two more.
Hi there, my name is Lee Berry, I'm a resident from Benjamin Street. I would like to know if each of you supports the town's purchase of the property known as the busing property or the Street Greenway, and what would be your long-term plans for that property?
Is this the question related to the
Yes, the
ballot
question.
question?
Yes, about the ballot
Okay,
question.
right.
We are going to discuss that later, but I think it's appropriate time to ask now the selectmen
Yes,
candidates.
it would be great to have the candidates weigh in on this. Mr. Dalton, would you go first?
Sure.
Oh, wait a minute.
Mr.
No, I
Demore.
had you go first last time. So,
So
Mr.
in reverse-
Demore. Right,
reverse?
Mr. Demore, would you go first on this
Sure.
one? Excuse me.
As many of you know, I'm very passionate about open space, and I've been doing a lot of hiking around town, as you know, and following my Facebook adventures. I do believe that open space is important. I do also understand that there's an aquifer, which is a natural blessing that we have, which means that we have a lot of natural spring water that's available to us. And a portion of that property, there's a well that can be developed there. So I believe in a compromise solution. I don't believe in buying up all the land, but I do believe in buying up as much as we can with money we already have in the bank. And there's two pieces. One of them is the conservation, the CPA money that is available. We can buy a parcel that way. We can also buy a parcel with money that's available through the water department, because they're sitting on that aquifer, and so therefore legally we can use those funds to buy land that's sitting on the aquifer. And then the rest of it has to be negotiated, which in fact it already is under negotiation. The Zoning Board of Appeals is hearing the owner of that property, certain proposals. I would be in favor of a very small, low-impact neighborhood, what's called a conservation subdivision, with a good portion of that land donated to open space. So this way here, it costs the taxpayers nothing. No override, no debt exclusion. That to me is important as well. Thank you.
Ms. Graney, would you go next?
Sure, thank you. I'm still researching it. I attended a meeting, it was like an improper meeting for the town abutters that we were all invited. They proposed what they were going to do, but they didn't really give us a whole lot of direction on what they were spending, on what it was gonna cost, what they were gonna provide for the town and the school system. So until I really research the rest of it, I'm really not sure I'm gonna agree with it.
And Mr. Dalton?
I've actually also just started some research on the project. I've actually been on the website looking at some of the ideas that are out there, some of the research that's already been done with that program working in other counties and other communities. I'm all for open space, but I think ultimately, at the end of the day, it's gonna be up to the taxpayers whether that land is purchased or not.
There was another hand up there in the back.
Hi, my name's Doug Gilat, I live in town. I have a question, your position, what would it be if Pentucket School District moved forward to do a high school project, whether they build a new school or a major improvement, would you support it?
I wasn't sure he was finished with the question, sorry.
I
So-
guess I don't know, because I don't have what I need to know. Are they looking to build
Yeah.
another school? Are they,
They're looking to evaluate the high school and see what the needs are, and possibly put on a addition or so forth.
I guess I'd have to see what the evaluation states. I graduated from Pentucket Regional High School, so, I'm not sure.
Mr. Demore, you want to go next?
We are blessed this year. We have a fiscally conservative superintendent, and a few of us on the board that are also fiscally conservative are proud to announce, and it's not my own doing, it was a collaborative effort, that there isn't gonna be an override for our schools. And in fact, there isn't gonna be an override to operate our schools for many, many years. We finally figured that out. So now what you're talking about is the building of a new school. There's really two ideas here. We can either build a new school from scratch, which would cost about $35 million, or we can renovate substantially for about $18 million. And these are important figures to understand, because 6, 7 years ago, we missed a golden opportunity to have a major renovation of our high school done with about 60 or 70% of the money coming from the state. And now, if we're lucky, we'll get 50%. So yes, I would be in favor of building a school, but it would have to be a major collaborative effort with all 3 towns. And it wouldn't be my decision, and I wouldn't support anything until I heard from all 3 towns as to how we're going to approach the problem. But the plant is is old, and it needs to be changed, and it needs to be upgraded. We can't deliver education anymore in that building going forward. In the next 10 years, we may have to close it down.
Another question?
Claire Walsh from Main Street.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I cut
That's
you
all right.
off.
That's
I
okay.
didn't mean
That's
to.
all right.
I saw a hand.
Obviously, having 4 children going through the Pentucket school system as we speak, I would be in support of a new high school. So, yes.
Okay, so now, the
Now,
next
okay.
question, please.
Claire Walsh from Main Street. What are your feelings on affordable housing for the town?
Okay, and Mr. Demore, would you go first, please?
I'm greatly stressed about affordable housing. We only have 3% of our housing at an affordable ratio. If we don't even begin to act towards going towards the goal of 10%, there is a precedent in the state of Massachusetts where state aid to our town could potentially be withheld. So I do believe in finding solutions to to affordable housing. Part of the formula can also be done with the addition and approval of apartments as well. So I don't have any hard answers right now, but I would be in favor of building affordable housing solutions or finding affordable housing solutions. It's essential for us. Otherwise, we could lose state aid and become a very expensive place to live with our taxes going up and nothing to show for it. We've done nothing in 12, 13 years towards building any meaningful affordable housing units, and that's not a good thing.
Mr. Dalton?
Well, I actually agree with Mr. Demore. I would obviously want our community to meet that 10% requirement, because it is very critical that this community continues to get state funding. So that's my thought on that.
I would also agree on affordable housing. I think everyone should have the opportunity to come and move to Groveland. It's a great place to live.
Okay, do we have another question?
Kathy Casternalis. I'm interested in a board of selectmen that is more transparent than what's going on right now. I'm very concerned about the ethics allegations that the board members facing. And I'm wondering how either any one of you would deal with that situation where you elected to that seat, and further, what would you do in the future so that we don't end up with these kind of expensive allegations again?
Mr. Dalton, would you take that first?
Sure. As a member of the Board of Selectmen, if I were elected, obviously you want to have transparency between the town's government and the people of the community. It appears as of late there are some issues, shall we say, with certain information getting out to the public that shouldn't be. But, you know, I as a candidate, to address that, I think, you know, transparency is key, communication is key.
Could I just clarify? What I'm speaking about is the violations that are now public record with the Ethics Commission. Have you reviewed those?
I've reviewed a couple of them in the paper, but.
Oh, it's online too.
Okay.
So,
Is there a place online I'm
Right.
supposed to read them, or?
yeah, the Ethics Commission.
Okay, well, I don't
Yes,
I don't
okay, so-
frequent the Ethics
all right, well,
Commission's website.
Let me then, can I phrase
Okay.
it so that he can answer it?
Sure.
If that's all right, and you can start his time.
That'll be fair.
You accept that there are several allegations of ethics violations, that is facing a member of our current Board of Selectmen.
Okay, there's I
So
believe
if you're
one.
elected to the position on the Board of Selectmen, one, how would you handle that situation as a member of the board? And two, what would you do moving forward to ensure that this does not occur again?
Well, I don't, as far as any ethical laws, I don't think I can control who breaks those laws and who doesn't. I mean, I can certainly do my part as a member of the Board of Selectmen to not violate those ethics rules. If that, okay?
That's your answer, right?
Ms. Graney, would you take it next, please?
Sure. I know there are ethic violations, however, they're in the proper hands with the people, and they will decide what is going to happen. We don't have all the answers, and we don't know all the facts, so it's very difficult to make any decision on that. You can't control what other people do, you can only control yourself, and if you do violate something, then you need to suffer the consequences.
Thank you. The ethics violations that were detailed on the website, the state ethics, brings to mind a thought when I first read them, and that is that for we humans, we don't have to be malicious and be unethical. In fact, we can unintentionally be unethical. And I think some of the allegations that are being leveled to one of our public officials is specifically, not that there's been any malicious intent, but just simply not understanding the process. I can tell you that from 6 years of being on the school committee, I know how to run a meeting. And we run it very strictly with Robert's rules. And we read the Riots Act when we go into executive session as to what can be said and what cannot be said. And I think that when you take a good look at what the Ethics Commission is complaining about, it's a simple matter of not understanding the rules that are imposed on those of us in public service. And I truly believe that. It wasn't malicious intent, it was just not understanding the rules. And I will change that by education. I recently took a course which was mandated by the state, and I would ask that the Board of Selectmen and all commissions and boards go through rigorous training on a very regular basis, not the minimum mandatory, but we can self-impose a regimen ourselves to bring the standard up to where it needs to be so we don't make those mistakes.
Is there another question?
Michael Dempsey again. Can you, the town's government is built on volunteerism. So can you detail for us a little bit about some of your volunteer experience, in particular here in Groveland, and inspire us as to why we should vote for you?
Okay. Ms. Graney, would you go first?
I recently moved back to Groveland 3 years ago with my mom, and have since retired. So now I have the opportunity to become more involved in this community. So as of right now, the only thing I are involved in is our town elections. I help in Brody, I check people in and check out. So in the future, I'll be participating a lot more.
Mr. Demore?
Mike, I would be inspired if you voted for me. Thank you. I've started a nonprofit organization 7 years ago where, incredibly, we actually do community service through soccer-related activities. And we do a lot of humanitarian projects as well. The most recent one is we raised about $4,000 of soccer equipment. Most of it was new, and we shipped it out to some needy kids in Kenya. And that was a pretty cool thing to do. I myself personally, my wife and I personally are involved in a lot of humanitarian efforts. Recently, I was recognized for my work for delivering a whole bunch of Christmas presents to some families in Lawrence that were burnt out in a fire. And we try to keep this kind of quiet. It's what we like to do as a family, and my kids are involved as well, but lately I haven't been quiet about it because I need your help. We opened up our garage to collect gifts and materials to bring to families. So volunteerism is what I'm all about. It's part of my family as well. And if I become a Board of Selectmen, getting the vote is the first thing, but the second thing is I want people not to say no when I knock on your door and say, please, can you get involved? We have a lot of seats that are open on our commissions and our boards, and I think what people need is motivation and an example. Right now, there's a feeling of being dejected. There's a feeling that maybe you're not welcome in this town to serve. But I will set that example that the welcome mat is open, and how to get involved is something that I can certainly set that example. I've been doing it for years, and people that know me know this.
For community volunteer, I've actually volunteered for 3 years with the sponsored dinner for the seniors. I've, obviously having 4 children, I've volunteered at every soccer, baseball, hockey, football, every sporting event you can imagine. I've coached from the time that we moved into this community. I've coached my son in hockey. I coached my 3 girls in basketball and soccer. I just recently, with another member of the coaching staff for my girls basketball team, we just actually were fortunate enough to take our 8th grade girls team, who wouldn't have normally had a place to play basketball because there were roadblocks in place in years past. They just played at halftime at the Celtics game this past week.
Oh, okay. I think we have another question.
Hi, Claire Walsh again. What are your feelings towards a 5-member Board of Selectmen versus a 3-member?
Okay. Mr. Demore, would you begin this one?
Well, I've been very public about that. I showed up at a Board of Selectmen meeting about a year ago, and I asked the Board of Selectmen, I said, I'm here to tell you as a courtesy, I think I'm gonna start a petition. There seems to be an idea around town that people would like to do that. And so Bill Dark and Betty Gorski said, why don't you join us instead, form a committee, and let's study the problem. We actually did that. And in fact, very recently, we voted as a committee to put that on the floor at the town meeting. And if it passes there, then folks have to vote on it a week later on May 6th. And then if it passes there, we have to go to the state of Massachusetts and ask them for permission to pass the law to allow it. So I believe it's possible that this is the right idea for this town. A lot of towns our size in this area have already converted to that. Georgetown was the most recent, and they're thrilled. It removes a lot of the conflict of interest issues that you have. It also removes the current problem we have today, where certain boards of selectmen or members of certain boards cannot vote on matters because they have a conflict of interest. And it also gets rid of the problem, for example, of creating a supermajority with just 2 people. So there's a whole host of good reasons why it should be done. I've certainly been an advocate of it. I've been very proud to serve with Betty Gorski on this committee to come up with these solutions. And our work continues, by the way. That committee is still active, and we have a second charge that's coming up. And it's all part of supporting the idea of a 5-member board. So yes, I'm all for it.
Ms. Graney?
I'd like to hear the rest of the results from your meetings. I don't know them all. And how was it voted? Was it 3 or 5?
It was 5 against 3, and Betty voted against it. But we still work together.
That's okay, as long as you work together. I think as long as you have 3 committed people that want to do the right thing for the town, 3 is fine. I'm not opposed to 5, but whatever works for the town is the way to go.
I actually had the privilege of sitting in on one of their meetings when they discussed the 3 to 5 member board. There was some very valid, some very good points brought up about having 2, it then becomes a quorum, and then having that 5, which, you know, if 2 people are in the supermarket talking, that could potentially be conceived as a quorum, and they could potentially be discussing matters that they shouldn't be discussing. So would I be opposed to a 5-member board of selectmen? No, I wouldn't. I would support that.
You didn't, I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. You said you did not support that.
No, I would support,
Oh, you
I
would
would
support.
support.
Okay, thank you
And
for
ultimately,
clarifying.
it's up to the
Of
to the
course,
voters.
Absolutely, yes, thank you.
So unless there's another burning question out there, oh, okay. Oh, now they're all coming, okay.
Melanie Sullivan, I live on School Street. I keep hearing conflict of interest, and I'd like to know if anyone on for the candidates has a conflict of interest and how they would deal with that if a conflict of interest arise while they were in the position of sitting on the board.
And may I take the liberty of asking, instead of taking the full 2 minutes, could we, in the interest of time and trying to fit in all the other number of races, would you object to shortening the time and we could maybe squeeze in a couple of these other questions?
Madam Moderator,
Yes,
isn't there only one other contested race?
I believe so, but we have some other items on the agenda to let some other people make some statements, and we have a presentation on the ballot question.
I'd like to hear from the candidates.
The people may mind limiting the candidates' discussion.
Okay, all right, this is what I wanna know, okay. So we continue, all right, very good. Do we need to repeat the question?
She
Okay.
can assure us, I
Wait,
understood
about
it.
conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest. If you take the seat on the Board of Selectmen and you run into an area that's a conflict of interest, how are you going to deal with this and remove yourself from the situation?
Mr. Demore, would you begin?
How come I'm first on?
Sorry, I had to go back
You're
to the
good
top
ones.
of the list, that's why.
Conflict of interest, and which is also related to nepotism, occurs when 5 types of people or classes of people are impacted, specifically brother and sister, spouse, children, for example. So what's important to me is that I don't have a conflict of interest. I think I've explained that to you. I don't own any property. I don't have anybody that I know in town in any department or works for the town. And so that, I think, is a distinguishing characteristic about my candidacy. And I think that what needs to be done in this town is we need to go through a bit of an education process and understand that there are potential conflicts of interest. Some of them have materialized into some of the ethics violations that we have today. But conflicts arise. So, for example, if we have a Board of Selectmen member that has a family member in a department, and I'll just make this up. Let's say we need a fire truck, okay, and that Board of Selectmen says, well, I can't vote because I have a member in that department. And then the other 2 disagree. That's not a decision. And unfortunately, a lot of decisions are being made that way because of the nepotism rule and because of the conflict of interest that exists. So we need to clear of that, and by placing people in office that don't have any conflict of interest. That's me.
Ms. Greenie?
Well, I know that my brother being on the Board of Selectmen and I also running has people thinking there is a conflict of interest. I spoke with the Ethics Committee in Boston, and before I ran, I made sure that this did not present a conflict of interest. We went through many scenarios on what could possibly be considered a conflict of interest, but none of them were. The other conflict that I was concerned with was my son-in-law, who's a lieutenant on the fire department. Because he is my son-in-law, it does not present a conflict of interest. But when we were discussing certain aspects of the job, like, you know, who is going to be the next fire chief, would I choose to recuse myself? At this point, the Board of Fire Engineers does that, so it would not be a conflict of interest for me at that point. And the only thing that I would consider recusing myself from would be pay salaries. It is not considered a conflict of interest as far as ethics in Boston is concerned, but I would feel that that would be one item that I would recuse myself, and only one item.
Point of order, can I provide a rebuttal?
Why don't we get through the first round and then
That's
we'll
fine.
do optional rebuttals.
I do not have any conflicts within the town, so there's absolutely no conflicts with me. I know there's been some talk out there that they may be, but there isn't.
Okay, so, let's offer each candidate an
Sure.
optional rebuttal.
Remember what I said earlier about you know, we don't have to have bad intentions. We can have very good people with very good intentions. There is no conflict of interest for Mrs. Greeny to be on the board with her brother. We understand that. But there is a host of things that could happen that can go wrong. For example, there would have to be disclosure. For example, a brother and sister on that group of 5 that I mentioned, brother and sister, they would have to be very careful about discussing in public the budget. They would have to disclose in advance that they are receiving a stipend. In fact, they would even have to declare not to receive the stipend for them to, for example, suggest to the town that we should approve the budget. Because there's a little line item inside that budget called each other's stipend. And when you do have a daughter, for example, that does have, is married to a fireman, there is a conflict there as well, because if you don't recuse yourself or you don't disclose it, then you could potentially be in violation if you approve, for example, pay raises to firemen. So again, it's not malintentions or people with bad intentions. It's just that it makes things very difficult. And I think this Board of Selectmen, we already have an issue where one of the members cannot vote on police matters. So we need to get away from that. We need to get away from that and go towards people that have no conflict of interest. I've opened with that and I would end with that. Thank you.
Ms. Graney's next.
I appreciate your feelings on the matter. However, I really don't believe I present a conflict of interest. I would make the choices my own. I would thoroughly investigate. My family and I, when we get together, we have more things to talk about than the town. We have, you know, my nephew going to college and my grandson, who is the most important thing in our world. If I ever felt that I was going to have a conflict of interest, I would recuse myself, but I really don't see that I would have that problem at this time.
Mr. Dalton?
Oh, yeah,
All right.
nothing-
You certainly
nothing-
don't have to.
Nothing further to add.
Okay. All right, I know we saw another question that you were waiting.
Steve Merrill, Summer Street. As board members, right now, the selectmen have a lot of power. They have a lot of responsibilities. I think they do too much. How would you delegate to some of these other committees, like, for instance, recreation? We have to, I'm on soccer, baseball has to do it as well. Every time we wanna go for a field permit and scheduling, we have to fill out a form, and then the selectmen are responsible for allowing it or not allowing it. Would you keep it with the selectmen, or would you delegate it off to another committee like the recreation?
Okay. Ms. Graney?
Do you want the job?
I'm pushing it to the regs.
Has it been presented to the Board of Selectmen? Has anyone talked to them about it?
Right now, is I wanna know what you as new selectmen, because that is one of the things that I am potentially gonna ask the selectmen to do. I think that they have too many responsibilities. I'd like to alleviate that. I think that there are groups out there that would take more responsibility if we forced it on them.
I don't want to force anything on anyone. However, I think through teamwork, communication, I think anything could be worked out. So if you wanna come in, I'd say go for it.
I'll take it, but then no one else is getting the field.
I would be in support of pushing some of that delegation off to those respective groups, whether it be baseball, football, soccer, lacrosse, so.
I don't know, Steve, I don't know about this grab for power tonight. I wouldn't delegate anything until I understand what the line of authority is. There's 2 levels of delegation. One is delegate work, but then you have to be careful we're not delegating away the authority that belongs to the authority that should keep it. So I don't have a hard answer for you, but I did say earlier that one of the things that I will make my mission is to go out and recruit people and form study groups and invite people to come to boards and commissions and fill up those empty seats and go through a process to figure some of these things out. I do believe that our 3 Board of Selectmen are overtaxed with a lot of burden. And I do believe that they find themselves, unfortunately, overreaching, not because they're malicious about it or because they're doing it for self-interest, it's because they love this town, they care for it, and they're trying to do the right thing. But we have to be careful not to delegate away the authority. And I don't know where that line is between the Board of Selectmen and the rec at this hour.
Thank you. Is there another question in the back?
Justin Gordon, Wharf Drive. Given the apparent direction of the national economy, what are your feelings on living within our means versus relying on state aid?
Okay, and Mr. Dalton, would you take that first, please?
Obviously, living with my wife and 4 children, and I have my mother and my grandmother that lives with us. We never live beyond our means, and I don't think as a community we should be spending beyond our means. I'm with all the cuts to state aid and the federal funding. I think it's probably not a good idea to depend on those funds, but sometimes you have to. But it's not wise to live beyond your means. So.
Mr. Demore?
That's a very important question. I also don't trust the economy to save us, nor do I trust the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to save us. So how do we become self-sufficient is really the question that you're asking. Well, we have to become a little bit more friendlier to businesses. Businesses pay taxes. Recently, a very significant business left town, leaving behind very significant amount of excise taxes that we've now lost because we were unfriendly to them and we were not reasonable. So we need to be more friendly to a little bit of development. There's only 2 ways to pay more taxes. We either get the same people to pay more, or we get more people to pay. And so we need to look at our businesses, our zoning board, our zoning bylaws. We need to review those again. We need to understand how we can make it more friendly for businesses to do business here, how people can work here, how people can build houses here, because those are all things that will generate revenue. We need to generate more revenue. That's the key. When you put down water and sewer, that's an investment. But do you know that that will pay for many, many decades? That's a revenue-creating condition. So we need to think about what do we do to generate our own internal revenue so that we become less dependent on the state and the economy. It's a great question. Thank you.
I truly believe in living within one means. I was a single mom for a long time, and you have to provide, and you gotta take care of what you need to provide. You can't always count on outside help, so I'm all for staying within our means.
I think I saw a question here.
I'm concerned about, I'm asking the candidates what they feel or know about the accusation of a smear campaign that could be career destroying, and that's been made online. And I'd like to hear candidates address that.
Do we understand the question?
Something about a smear
I don't
campaign.
understand the
Could you
question.
clarify that,
Let me
please?
try to reword it. There's been accusations online of a smear campaign against certain candidates running for Board of Selectmen. And I'm asking the candidates to address that type of campaign.
Since I didn't say there was a smear campaign, I really don't
I
know, so.
have to ask the board.
I'm not sure. Who, I guess the person
Are
who
you-
said there is
excuse me.
one should respond. I have no clue.
Are you trying to get at a question regarding the qualifications of the candidates?
Well, I think I can answer the question. I'd be willing to give it a try.
All right, well, let's go back to the order.
Give it a try.
I've
Hey,
never,
Mr. Demore, would you go first? And I'd
Sure.
like each candidate to have a turn at it unless you choose to
Can't hear you
not
back there.
have your turn. Okay, did you get the question?
Yeah, but I can't hear you.
All right, well, we're just working out who's going first, that's all.
I'm first again.
Yep, we're back to
The
the top.
question that was asked of the candidates specifically is how would we manage, how are we handling the allegations that are floating around town about smear campaigns? Well, let's not mince words. About 6 weeks ago, there was an orange letter that was circulated. It was mailed to hundreds of residents, and it expressed certain grievances, which I really don't understand where they come from. And then, of course, there's other rumors going around about my background and perhaps Mr. Dalton's motivations for running. And then, which, as you know, Kathy, I was very clear about that. I thought that the treatment of your family in the
Oh, yes, you
newspaper was absolutely wrong and immoral. So in that environment, in that soup, there is the potential for smearing. And people that get very passionate about their candidates can go on a smear campaign with or without the knowledge of the candidate. But I think to answer your question, how would we manage it? The way you see us managing it tonight. I've officially met Tony Dalton for the first time tonight. I've seen him at meetings. I didn't know who he was until recently. And I've just met Kathy Greeny tonight, and we are conducting ourselves in a way that I would think would be exemplary and indicative of how we handle the smear campaign. We're ignoring it.
Ms. Greeny, next.
I'm gonna agree. You just muddle through and do the best you can.
Yeah, I think I can address that a little bit. I know that there have been some things that have been said out there that I've read out in the social media that personally targeted myself or my wife. I can tell you that a lot of that stuff that's out there is false. They're all false allegations. I have no conflicts. My wife has no lawsuit against this town. So I just want to put that to bed right now. There was never a lawsuit. I know that's been said several times. There was never a lawsuit, there never is a lawsuit, and there never will be a lawsuit.
Point of order, I'd like to offer a rebuttal.
Sure.
I appreciate that, Mr. Dalton. I'm not sure what it is, if it's a lawsuit or whatever, but I have to say that I did see a meeting on December 17th of 2012, and I believe that Mrs. Dalton's attorney was there as well. And very specifically, your attorney said that we need to work out a solution with a monetary component. Now, I don't know if that means a lawsuit. I really, really don't. But clearly, from my own perspective, when I viewed that tape, it appeared to me that there was a grievance that you harbored. Not you personally, but perhaps Mrs. Dalton. And perhaps it is very, very likely that whatever that grievance is, it is very, very, very legitimate. There's no question about that. But I am concerned about the fact that you have approached several meetings with demands for certain things and requesting certain information. But then when I see a lawyer representing a client who is, I believe, a former employee, asking for a monetary component to a settlement, I have to believe that something's going on. And I can't address that. Perhaps you can.
No, I will to the best of my ability. I'll say what I can say is there was a grievance process per the guidelines for the policies and procedures within the town. Those were followed. And I can tell you that the matter has since been put to bed, shall we say. There has been an agreement between all parties involved, and it's no longer an issue. And that's legally, that's all I can say.
Of course. Well, of course, if there is a settlement, and of course there would be very strict rules about disclosing, perhaps even that the settlement is in place. But so fair enough. So there was a grievance, and could there be? Could I entertain this thought that before you had that settlement, and when you had decided to run, there was a conflict of interest in your heart, because perhaps that settlement occurred after.
Excuse me, I need to call this, we're getting slightly out of order at this point, we're really not.
I can just for the record.
This is not the intention of our forum, I understand.
I just want to, just in response to that, my wife resigned from the town on August 28th of 2012. Thank you. Thank you.
And I'll say one thing. It was red duct tape on the signs. We were definitely, I'm sorry, my grandmother said it was better to be a penny wise than a pound foolish, so we do recycle.
I do want you to understand, I am sensitive to every town has their issues, but it's,
Yeah,
we're
I think we're
veering a
good.
little away from the spirit of what the purpose is. All right. I'm sorry, okay, that you can't hear me in the back, but I just want to pull us back on track for the purpose of the league's candidate event, okay? But, I understand you have this opportunity to try to talk to one another, but I'm going to steer us back on track. So, now, are there any more questions from the audience? Okay, yes.
Hi, Jenna Briscoe. I'm just curious why you're running. Plain and simple.
Okay, so let's see.
No, everyone. Oh, sorry. Lots of
Plain and simple. You do these things are plain and
I read
simple.
a lot of stuff on Facebook. It must be true, but
And that's a
Just
classic,
wondering why you're running, all
that's
of
a
you.
classic candidate question, I love it. Alrighty, so we will go with Ms. Graney first.
Thank you. Why am I running? I love Groveland. I grew up here. My family is here. I have a grandson that I intend to grow up here, and I want him to have the same opportunities that I had when I was a child. Go ahead, you can go next.
I've chosen to run, this is a community that my wife and I handpicked when we were out looking, when our children were small. This is a community that I wanted to raise my children in and retire in, and potentially have my children raise their families here. Groveland is a great community.
I echo Anthony's sentiments. We came here from Everett, and we've raised 4 children, and it's been a great place to raise a family. And so I'm running specifically because I want a few more things. I'd like it for also to be a great place to run a business and to work and to do volunteerism and to grow old with dignity. And I think that there's some things in town that are going on that I'm a little concerned about. It's mostly the leadership. It's not our employees, and it's not our boards and commissions. I think we have a conflicted Board of Selectmen. They've lost their ability to lead in certain aspects, and I believe that I can bring the enthusiasm back, the passion, and the professionalism that's needed so that we can get back on track and be a happier town.
Thank you. Okay. I think
How
it's.
about that? That was fine.
Is there any other question?
Anybody else?
Okay. So
Is
we'll make
nobody
this-
else behind me?
Nobody else behind you, so we'll make this the last question, and then we'll, okay.
Last
great.
question?
Go for it, go Go Valerie.
Valerie Osborne, 3 Pleasant Street. What do you see as the major problem that you would want to work on if you got elected to the Board of Selectmen?
Okay,
Just go.
Mr. Dalton, you go first.
One of the issues that has recently come to light with people trying to start businesses in town, people trying to apply for permits and different things of that nature, for the boards to just flat out say no without having all their information or all the proper information. So I think I would like to see the boards think about the total impact of the decision that they make. So I would look to see some changes within the boards and town government to think about the choice they're making and how it's gonna impact the town and the taxpayers.
Mr. Demore?
I think sometimes prioritizing an issue is depending on how fast it's coming at us. And one of the things that's coming at us very quickly is something that's been hanging around for 12 years as an issue, and that's Strawberry Fields. I think there are going to be 3 warrant articles this year on the town meeting that needs to address whether we're gonna buy a whole bunch of land or we're gonna allow it to develop. But if we fall asleep at the wheel and we don't pay attention to what's going on with this property and we don't negotiate into what I think might work, and that is a small conservation subdivision, we could wake up with a very nasty headache called 40B, which is a very powerful state law which could make the owner of Strawberry Fields build hundreds of units there. And if we build hundreds of units there, we're not gonna have enough fire, we're not gonna have enough police, we're not gonna have enough road and pipes in the ground to bring water over there, we're not gonna have enough room in the school to house all those kids. So we need to get on a track, a fast track, and make 2013 the year that this town decides what to do with that property. We either develop it, we turn it all into open space, or we split it somewhere down the middle.
Could you repeat your question again?
Basically, what do you see as a major problem in Groveland that needs working on, and what would you do about it?
I think just communication and teamwork and accountability. I think everybody needs to work together so we can all live in a wonderful community.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask the candidates to make their closing statements now. and we're gonna go in reverse order from the opening statements. So Ms. Graney, you'll go first.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. We have some important issues coming up. I hope you all attend a town meeting. Please go to election, vote, let your voice be heard, and have a wonderful, safe evening.
And Mr. Demore is next.
I want to share something with you. This is a handheld GPS device, and my kids urged me to actually buy it, as I've been hiking in the woods recently. But the truth is that I actually don't know how to use this thing. I've been getting lost recently. And what that brings to my mind is something that I've heard repeatedly in the last 6 or 7 weeks as I'm going door to door campaigning and meeting with people. And that is, people have lost the ability to use our government to better their lives. They know it's valuable, but it's a gadget they can't figure out. And I don't know if I'll ever figure this out, but I will figure out how to make this government work better. Again, it's not our employees, and it's not the dedicated people on the commissions and boards, even though we don't have enough of them right now. I think what we have is a conflicted Board of Selectmen. I think they've lost their way, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do. The primary job is to defend this town, defend it from lawsuits, defend it from mismanagement, defend our history, our heritage, and our way of life. And I think, as Tony said, we need to make things work better at the permitting level. There's a whole list of reasons we need to make things work better. That's why I'm running for Board of Selectmen. I don't have all the answers. I'd be kidding you if I did tell you that. But I can make you only one promise. It's a big job, and I'm up to the task.
Mr. Dalton.
In closing, I'd like to just state that the reason I run for Board of Selectmen is because I want to have an impact on this community. I want things to change for the better so that people want to stay in this community, they want to be in this community, they want to start businesses in this community, and that's it. So please come out and vote on May 6th. Good night.
While we have a change of panel right here, we're going to ask if there are any candidates from the Housing Authority. Is anybody present for that race tonight? I do want to point out that the candidates were invited, candidates from all races were invited to attend this evening.
There was no response from the 2 candidates for Housing Authority. So we'll move on to the uncontested candidates now.
Right, so we have a candidate for the assessor, Mr. William Dark.
No, Mr. Dark tonight.
Board of Health?
There is no candidate for the Board of Health. I do not know whether there will be somebody as a written-in candidate or not. Not heard yet.
Do we have any candidates present for the library trustee?
Well, I'm standing here, so I'm just, yes, I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my name is Kathleen Pernia, and I've been on the Board of Library Trustees
Did you
for
want to make a statement?
a lot of years.
Stand up so
We're going to ask you to come and use the microphone and.
so people can
all right.
hear. She's got her walker right there.
Can I make it from here?
Sure. Let me just bring you the mic to make sure that the folks at home can hear you.
I'm not all that fascinated.
That's all right. We're still on course.
We have 3 open seats on the Board of Trustees this year, and we have 3 candidates, 2 incumbents, and 1 is a new gentleman, and I don't know if he's here. I haven't met him yet. But we have a wonderful library. We act as a community center. We service children from baby lapsit to elderly people for all kinds of programs. We do wonderful programming. We have a wonderful library. We depend a lot on the support of the community. We are backed by the Board of Selectmen always. And I find the Board of Selectmen very effective, and I find that they do a wonderful job. They do a wonderful job for our library, and I think we put people in place, and then we complain, and nothing's ever comes of it. but I do ask for you to come. We've got a wonderful book sale that's coming up and an open house, and contribute to your library. We're a great center. Thank you very much.
I do want to apologize. I skipped over our candidate for the cemetery commissioner, Richard's, gosh,
Shaka.
Shaka, excuse me. Sure. We'll sit over with you too.
My name is Dick Shacker. I've been on the cemetery now for three terms, and we have a number of issues that we'd like to bring to your attention. The first one is that we have an article on for the Preservation Act, which hopefully you will vote for. Is if we get the grant, what it will do is we have a lot of stones.
We can't hear you back here, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm using the mic, and that's all I've got. I don't. Okay, so why don't I just stand? Maybe I can get my voice out there. Okay.
Pick it up for the television.
I would translate.
Pick it up for the television. Okay.
Sorry, we make it
If we
difficult.
get this grant, we have a lot of stones. This cemetery goes back beyond 1850, and we have a lot of cemetery slates in the front that have actually broken. And with the grant, hopefully a reputable company will come in, fix the stones, set them back up. Some of them are falling down on the bankings, and the engraving will be cleaned. So we're asking for your support on that. Second thing we are planning to do is down in the front where our little shed is, we're going to put a new office. Make it much more convenient with set hours with the cemetery foreman, where you can actually come down right at the bottom of the hill instead of trying to find him somewhere in the cemetery. So that's second item we want to do. Third thing we wanted to do was put a gazebo up at the top of the cemetery. 3 seconds I've got. Basically because it was called Riverview because you were able to sit at the top of the cemetery and actually see the river. And hopefully we're going to do that so that you can actually, for people who want to just read a Bible or do something after losing somebody, that they can sit and just ponder. And the last thing, and I'm using this modem, is that people who have bought a full grave lot, in other words, a full burial, what we found out is that, time's up.
You can finish.
That sounds just like a cemetery. I'm still talking anyways. But because I have the TV to get this out, if you bought a grave for a full burial, usually what happens is that the parties, either it's a husband and wife, buy it, and they put their names on the deed. The problem is that you are allowed 5 cremations on top of a full burial. And if you should die before your children, which they can't access your grave to put the cremations. So what we're asking anybody who's hearing us is to send us a letter or come to see us and put your children's name on it so they can access the graves, because we don't know the future. Everybody's looking for land, okay? We're looking for land for a new cemetery. We're in our last 2 sections of our present cemetery. So we don't know whether, who knows, they're not going to give us land for cemeteries. Maybe we'll all have to be cremated at some point. So these are the issues that we're going to be addressing and have been addressing. I have the cemetery almost all computerized, including, and hope to have it on the web. And my time's up.
Okay, so, do we have Mr. Cross from
Speak up, please.
the Light Commissioner? Mr. Cross is a candidate, is he here tonight? No. Okay, I know Valerie Osborne is running for moderator, and she's here tonight. Did you want to make a statement?
Good evening, I'm Valerie Osborne. I know a lot of you here. I first was elected moderator in 2001, and I think I'm one of the only two people on the ballot who has to run every year. It's a one-year term every year, so you lucky people have my name to see every year so far, anyway, and I'm still surviving. When I first became a moderator, before I became the moderator, I was asked by the previous moderator to sit in for her when Maya Olson, when she couldn't make a fall meeting for a special town meeting. And what I didn't know was that she was really grooming me to take her place because she knew she was going to leave the community the next year. And she asked me if I would put my hat into the ring the next year when she was not running, and I did. And I've enjoyed it. Most of the time we get a few, 1 minute, we have a few hot spots and a few hot events occasionally at the town meeting, but generally I find that people are very respectful. I have tried to make sure that time is of the essence. When I first became a moderator, before I became a moderator, sometimes the town meetings would take 2 nights and even 3 in the early years, and that was devastating for people. One of my first aims was to make sure that we got it down to 1 night, and that's the way it is now. And I hope that you folks here will help to make the 100 voters that we need for the annual town meeting, which is on the 29th. And I look forward to seeing you then, and I ask respectfully for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, do we have the candidates here for the planning board? Okay, the road commissioner? No, I guess we don't. School committee candidate, Ms. O'Connor? Yes, I guess we do. Great.
Some of you know me, some of you don't. My name is Lisa O'Connor. I'm a Groveland resident. I've lived here for 19 years.
Louder, please. They can't hear you back there.
I'm a Groveland resident. I've lived here for 19 years. I'm married and I have 2 children in our school district. One of them is at the Bagnell School and the other one's at the middle school. I'm running for the seat on the school committee because I feel that we're in a really good place right now with our schools. We have new administration, and it's an exciting time with our schools because with the new administration, we're becoming a world-class school district. And I know when we moved here 19 years ago, one of the reasons why we chose a home in Groveland was because of the reputation of our school district. And through the years, it seems that things weren't going well. But now with the new administration, it's an exciting time, and I want to be part of that. So I hope that, you people will, vote, and I appreciate your support, but I want to be part of that.
Yes, I will. Now, would anybody like to ask questions?
Lisa, I know that you worked, actually you attended many meetings in the last year or so, including some of the subcommittee meetings. students. Tell us a little bit about some of the work that you spearheaded regarding anti-bullying and the current policies that we now have in place. 'Cause I know you were very heavily involved in that.
Without going into too many personal things, there was a group of parents that worked our way through the school district up to the administration level, trying to seek resolution to different situations that were going on in our schools. And it seemed to me that it was a systemic issue. It wasn't just in any particular school. A little bit more so at one school than other schools, but it was systemic. So we ended up approaching the school committee at that level to try to seek resolution for children. And we started looking at the bullying policy that was in place, that was put in place in December of 2010, and the bullying plan. And we wanted to make it better, and we wanted to make our schools safer for our children and for our staff. So we worked very closely with the school committee, and we worked with the policy subcommittee for a long time. The administration got involved, teachers were involved, and students were involved. And everybody put together their thoughts, ideas, and the school committee in November approved of an updated plan, and it went before the state, and the state approved it, so it's now in place for our children.
What's your view on the curriculum called Common Core?
When I hear Common Core, correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't served on the school committee, so I don't know answers to certain things. But when I hear Common Core, I think of the curriculum frameworks. Is that the same thing?
I don't think so.
Okay. Then I'm probably not totally familiar with what you're talking about. You mean just the core academics?
It's a system being used to educate kids.
Okay, well, I'm familiar with the curriculum frameworks, Massachusetts curriculum frameworks that we have to stay with. So it has to be approved that whatever curriculum we decide to use as a school district, it has to follow the curriculum frameworks within the state.
Do you have to follow the state guidelines before you make your own decisions?
I think it has to be looked at. I'm not on the school committee. I still have a lot to learn. I've attended a lot of meetings.
Hi, I'm Doug Jeline. I'm on the school committee, and I'd just like to share with the people that Lisa did bring a very serious problem to the committee. And she wasn't just complaining or asking for us to do something. She helped with the solution to very, very important. Her work was very important. She gathered the people, brought them to the school committee. We had meetings over it. And we were hearing things that I don't think the school administration was aware was happening. And one by one, they all spoke and told their stories, and it leveled them. They absolutely didn't appreciate the big picture that was going on. And, you know, I can't thank her enough for that. It takes a lot of courage to do something like that. So I would welcome her to the school committee, and I think she's gonna bring a lot of quality experience with her family to the school committee.
I have another question for Lisa. This year, as you know, we don't have an override request from our town. Now, one of the things that created that condition is the elimination of some positions, such as the assistant superintendent position, which will be phased out next year, and also the special education director and performing arts. So you as a school committee member, what would you do and how would you be involved to ensure that that work doesn't suddenly go away, that it gets distributed? How are our kids going to be served well with the 3 key positions missing?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think one of the positions being eliminated is the assistant superintendent.
Correct.
Okay, I believe that some of that work is gonna be spread out through other administration, and I believe our current superintendent, Dr. Milqueen, will be taking over a portion of those responsibilities. And another job that's being eliminated is the principal at the Suites of School. And it is my understanding from attending a recent meeting that there is an administration person that's going to be put over at the Suites of School, as well as the Donahue principal is going to be overseeing both schools. And as for the Director of Special Education, there is going to be somebody hired, but that job is going to contain other jobs as well, such as the out-of-district coordinator position, and a few other positions as well. So I think there needs to be accountability. I think accountability is very important to make sure that people are doing their jobs and things are not being allowed to fall through the cracks, because the ones that are going to lose out in the end are the students and the children, and we can't allow that to happen. So I think, with the consolidation of jobs, I think we need to keep looking at that and making sure that things are not falling through the cracks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we're all set.
Well,
So I understand that the candidate for town clerk is not here? Okay. And the candidate for tree warden is here or no? No. And the candidate, we have a brief letter. Mr. Willett, the candidate for water sewer commissioner, was unable to attend, but he has sent a brief letter and asked it to be read.
This is a letter from John Willett. He says, "I'm very sorry that I could not be with you this evening, but I'm asking for your support in the upcoming election for the position of Water and Sewer Commissioner. I feel the Water and Sewer Department has done monumental improvements in our system, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you very much, John Willett."
And I think we're moving on to our final segment. We're going to have a presentation from the chair of the Conservation Commission.
Mr. Dempsey.
Mr. Dempsey, thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Mike Dempsey, and I'm here representing the Conservation Commission just to tell you a little bit about the Center Street Greenway. And on the ballot is going to be one of the things that needs to be approved to get the Center Street Greenway in place, and that is a ballot question for you to approve the override debt exclusion, the debt exclusion to borrow the money to pay for one of the properties that is going to be purchased. But first I'll start by telling you a little bit about what the Center Street Greenway is. The Center Street Greenway will consist of properties that now exist between Main Street and Center Street. And in order to form this Center Street Greenway, the town will need to purchase 3 properties, 2 of which, the Mattingly and the Angelini properties, will be purchased primarily with CPA funds and water department funds. So there will be no additional cost to taxpayers for those 2 properties. The 3rd property, which is what the debt exclusion is for, is 150 Center Street, owned by Mr. Jim Bussing, and we've previously referred to that property. So those 3 properties are going to form the Greenway. So I guess the question that I would have is, why on earth should we be doing this in Groveland? What are we trying to do? So I want to tell you the 4 reasons why I would hope that you would support this project and vote yes at town meeting and on May 6th. The first and most important reason I'd ask your support for the measure is to protect our town water. The Greenway, all of these properties sit right on top of our underground aquifer that supplies 80% of the water to town residents. Already in the past, we've had threats to that area. As you may have known, and as been mentioned before, we've had proposals to build up to 250 houses right on top of the aquifer. Not that houses are necessarily a bad thing when built near or on an aquifer, but it's a potential source of pollution for the water that is very difficult to control. The other thing that happened to our aquifer is that about over 20 years ago, the chemicals were released from a nearby screw machine shop that polluted the entire aquifer, and through millions of dollars of federal money that was spent, work was done to prevent the aquifer from being totally polluted beyond relief. And fortunately today, that very effective federal effort has cleaned up the area, and we're able to still draw most of our water from that area. So I think water protection is something that we really need to think about when we talk about the Greenway. The next is protecting open space and sensitive natural habitat. Groveland has been blessed by Mother Nature. We have a lot of unique animals, unique environments, wonderful wetlands, streams, and brooks, and woods and meadows. But they are quickly disappearing. We're cutting up the town, and this happens naturally because we're building. Groveland is a growing place. So we don't have too many of these resources left. The Greenway will be really one of the last large open spaces that will be available in town. So another thing to think about besides our water and our environment is protecting ourselves. And what do I mean by that? Well, as you all know, we all need exercise and recreation. Especially our town is full of young families with children who want playgrounds, sports fields. We all want walking areas and rail trails, places that we can bike safely. So the Greenway is an investment in those resources to provide recreation to town residents. So what I'm thinking is, it's wonderful to think about taking a walk or a short drive to a nearby recreation area. You can walk your dog, watch a football scrimmage, maybe play soccer or lacrosse, or even ride your bike without worrying about cars. So that's the idea with that. The final reason why I want you to support the Greenway has to do with a legacy. And I think all of us think maybe we'd like to leave some part of ourselves to our children or something for the future. And all of us in town right now have that opportunity. I think that we have to look at this project as an investment in the future, because those of us in the room right now, we're not going to be around for a long, 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 long time, but this project comes at a cost. And so the only way that it really makes sense is to look at it as an investment and to offer a legacy for all future generations to enjoy these resources that we set aside by implementing the Center Street Greenway. So I'd ask you to really think about that. We have there's a website, it's called centerstreetgreenway.org. A number of questions are answered on that website, and also there's more information about it, so please take a look at that and consider the proposal, and hopefully you'll support it on May 6th in that town meeting.
Would anybody like to ask some questions?
Mike, 3 questions.
Give your name, sir.
John Osborne. Valerie Osborne's husband.
So we go.
3 questions. 1, how much does it cost?
Okay.
2, how much is it an acre? And 3, how much will it put on the tax rate?
Okay. Well, the cost, I'll focus on what is really going to cost, because
The two of the parcels, as I mentioned, are not going to cost us any more. It's not
The cost of the piece that we're buying?
Yes.
How much per acre?
Yes. So I can't tell you the per acre cost, but we've negotiated the purchase of 150 Center Street, which is 61 acres, for $3.675 million. Sounds like an awful lot of money when you look at it that way, and it is a lot of money. That's going to be spread out over 20 years if we approve the debt exclusion, and that's going to cost the average homeowner tax rate about $126 per year that they are going to pay.
Thank you.
Joe?
Mike, I've actually attended two of your meetings, and I found them to be very, very informative, and you've got some very capable people. One of the things that I'm struggling with is I know that a debt exclusion is not like an override, which an override is permanent. Once it goes on your tax bill, stays on forever. Debt exclusion, you're gonna pay off a bond after, in this case, 20 years. It's gonna cost the average house about $120, $130 a month. Well, can you explain something that I heard at the, a year, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I thought I was in West Newbury, my apologies. Can you explain I picked up at the last meeting that if we don't do this, it will cost us more. And I couldn't figure out how it would cost us more.
Okay.
If we don't pony up and do the debt exclusion to buy that parcel of land, it could be an opportunity cost or some kind of a cost to the town in later years if we allow it to develop, perhaps?
Sure. Well, I would say I don't have the numbers specifically in front of me, and I don't think anybody really can say what the costs are of not buying it. But if we don't buy 150 Center Street, unfortunately, there is a active 40B permit process going on before the ZBA, as you know, to develop the property, and the proposal is to build 100 single-family homes on the property. So I imagine that when this was said, there are costs when you have 100 houses. There's additional police and fire costs. There are additional school costs. And I know, and again, I don't have the exact numbers, but recently I looked at a similar study that was done in Haverhill, and they found that the cost of property taxes that we receive from any house that is built, the cost to sustain the school cost, the fire, the police, far exceed what the town reaps in benefits of as far as property tax. So I imagine that was probably what was meant by it.
Is that housing affordable housing or market value?
It would only be 25% affordable, and the rest is 75% market value.
Thank you for that, appreciate it.
It sounds kind of unreal, though. If someone's gonna put up affordable housing versus market value housing, I believe they'd be losing money. So that sounds like a stupid idea, and I don't think the person who's gonna charge $60 for an acre would do something so, $60,000 per acre would do something so stupid. Can you clarify, or why that would be happening? It seems like the town's trying to be held, or someone's trying to hold the town hostage, threatening 40B.
No, you know, Justin, this 40B has been before the town for nearly 13 years. And they've gone around and around and around with it. We've had, you know, a few different developers involved in it, a number of different houses. We've never really seen what the ultimate number of houses are going to be built there and what the finances are like, because none of these proposals have completely gone through the ZBA process. We've only had partial information. We've never really seen what ZBA will allow there. So that's why I say it's difficult for us to sit here and say what it's going to cost us in the future, because it depends on the number of houses and what ZBA determines that infrastructure that's gonna be built and required there of the developer.
But again, the 40B threat sounds like a foolish one. And if it's been around for 13 years and never implemented, it sounds even more like a foolish one.
Yes, I agree. If I own the land, I wouldn't go down that route. And, you know, I'm surprised that they're still going down that route, especially in our financial environment, and housing hasn't been doing that well. And how are you gonna sell 100 houses quick enough to make any money on it? You know, a lot of it doesn't make sense. I agree with that. But here's the thing is, we can't question that. We don't have the opportunity. If we don't do this, if we don't buy this land, we are subject to whatever somebody chooses to do, whether they get the approval from ZBA right now, and then they have 100 houses, and they sell it to a developer, and they're able to put up 100 houses, or if in 2 or 3 years, this effort fails, and in 2 or 3 years is another effort. But it's just a matter of time before somebody is gonna come along and it makes financial sense for them to build something on top of our aquifer. Dick?
I remember when we had the wells go out and lost one well totally, that is ground zero. And that's the bottom line. That's where our water is. That's the only place we're getting water. So why jeopardize it?
No, that's not correct.
Well, I think you're right. It isn't. But
No, there's
it is
600
the aquifer.
You get 600 gallons per minute from well number 1.
Yes.
Getting 400 gallons per minute from well number 4.
Right.
And you're getting, I think, 300 gallons per minute from well number 2, which is in the back of the property. By the way, I was involved with the Well Pollution Committee. It took me 11 years to get a $1 million settlement on it, but we got it. There is a point that it is a threat, because at one point we had Valley Screw contaminated, but also we found there was another threat from Chesterton, which was a threat for pollution too. So that he is absolutely right, that aquifer is very valuable to the town of Groveland, to the tune of 600 gallons per minute, which is the big enchilada. There's hardly any other well in the community around here that gives that volume of water and that good quality water. So he has a point there, but at $60,000 an acre, I
Less than.
find that.
It's less than 60. Comes down to like 59,000 something.
Well.
Let's use accurate numbers.
I just wondered, what is the going rate of land in Groveland now? Is it 60,000 or there?
Well,
An acre?
it depends on what kind of land you're talking about. If you're talking about, you know, landlocked land, it can be appraised as little as $5,000 an acre. Developable land typically can go for, you know, a house lot can go for $100,000 to $200,000 for an acre parcel. So, you know, it just depends. And what's driving, unfortunately, what is driving this price is that 40B application. That's what's driving the price. Unfortunately, if that application, you know, went away, if it somehow could have gone away, or if it went away in the future, but, you know, we're taking a gamble by not striking while we can. That's what I would say. Yeah, Phil.
Phil Taylor, I just want to comment because the question was asked, how can it be profitable for a contractor? And focusing just on the 40B statute of the regulations, they're set up to make sure the contractor makes a profit. And it prevents the towns from imposing restrictions that would make the project not profitable. Their profit is restricted because they're providing affordable housing and getting a benefit, but the process is designed to make sure the developer gets a profit for doing this. So unless the developer really screws up their numbers and doesn't manage himself properly, they'll make a profit. So that's why there is incentive for developers to do this.
Does that 3.6 million or $60,000 per acre or $130 per year to my taxes, does that also include the cost of renovating or modifying that property to do all the nice things you said you wanted to do with it, recreation, soccer fields, running trails and all the other crap you mentioned.
Guess we know how he's gonna vote.
Justin, I always love being in the room with you.
No, no, obviously, it doesn't involve, anything that we want to improve the property for. And, you know, that's why I stressed in the beginning that this is an investment in the future. This will give us the opportunity to think about fields, trails, etc. We have plenty of ideas. There's plenty of ideas of what residents want to do with the property. So obviously the question is, well, how are we going to pay for these things? Fortunately, we have Community Preservation Act. There's grants available. We have great sports leagues who are willing to commit to help us develop those lands and take care of them and maintain them. So I'm confident that this investment will not go to waste.
Justin, you know, we've sat in meetings before at Shanahan for Shanahan issues and things that have happened. We're maxed out. There's nowhere for us to grow. I have Kentucky Youth Soccer I'm with the GYS, the soccer itself. We don't even work with the adult soccer leagues. And I can tell you on a regular basis, I forward onto the selectmen 5 to 6 requests from adult leagues that want to come in.
But they were all using that field before, and all of a sudden, boom, it stopped. Nothing.
Right.
And now it hasn't been used for how long?
The adult leagues for us on Shanahan?
No, that whole Strawberry Fields area. It was
it
available for use for everybody, but nobody took advantage of it.
Busing, I don't know who was, and their soccer was in there originally.
Yeah, but now
And
it's
so
not.
we couldn't, we were told to leave.
Why?
Our fields, it's a private property.
But he was renting it out, making money on the private property. It was his idea, I thought.
He might have been renting it out, but should all the youth programs continuously rent properties? I mean, I have to go all the way to Plastow to rent right now for some of my teams, and I think that's ludicrous.
What was wrong with renting in Groveland?
That's what we're here for. If we purchase this property, I'm renting it basically because I'm also a taxpayer.
I'm
So
also,
are all
also
parents.
renting it.
Right, and so are a lot of other adults that wanna play in town, they can't. There's so many different age groups and so many different sports that just don't have anywhere to go. And we're wasting a lot of money. But you gotta purchase the property first.
You don't have to purchase the property. That property was available to rent all this time, but nobody did.
What property is available to rent?
The Strawberry Fields.
No, it's not available. He's
It
not,
used to be. but all of a
Kentucky,
sudden
it's
no
not
more.
available, he's not renting it now.
All right,
Why
hello.
you stop?
Oh, I guess
Okay,
ask
you know
him.
what?
Well, he's not renting it now.
All right, let's get back on track here, okay? I love the enthusiasm. Okay, I think we have one more question
I would like to,
for Mike.
I would like to ask, is there any possibility of Community Preservation Act funding for this to help defray the costs?
Well, yes, in that what we've been able to do is negotiate. There's 3 properties that we're purchasing, so CPA funds are gonna be used to essentially pay the majority of the cost for 2 of those purchases. But we don't have enough CPA funds to really, apply them towards the 150 Center Street. In addition, you have to be careful with CPA funds that they can meet the required
Yes.
needs. So in working with the selectmen, we decided that the best option would be to separate these out and to attempt to purchase the 150 Center Street through a debt exclusion.
Between now and the election, are there going to be any other public forums where there'll be opportunity for voter education and input?
Town meeting floor, yes.
Don't you have a meeting on the 18th?
Well, yes, I mean, if you, right, exactly. If you would like to know more, there is a group of people called the Center Street Greenway Coalition that will be meeting the next 2 weeks up at Beasley Park at 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, the 18th and the 25th. So if you're interested in hearing more, maybe have some specific questions or suggestions, you can come either of those nights.
I think Valerie has one question.
If by any chance this doesn't pass at town meeting and the ballot box, it has to pass at both.
Yes.
Are the two other parcels with the CPA money, are they still going to be purchased?
Yes, yes.
Well, it has to be voted.
As long as we'll be voting at town meeting on 3 articles.
Okay.
So if we vote to approve the Angelini purchase and the Mattingly purchase, we'll purchase those. Those are the two that
At
won't
no
cost us any
No
extra.
cost.
Right. If we vote at town meeting to approve the 150 Center Street property, but it doesn't pass the ballot, then we won't purchase that one, but we still will be purchasing the other 2 properties.
And how many acres would that be? Could it be used, is it a good size?
Yes, those are about 90 acres combined, but they don't have the,
The aquifer?
no, they protect the aquifer, but those 2 properties primarily offer us future well sites. They don't have too much potential for recreation fields.
What's the price per acre for those?
The price per acre on those, I should have brought my calculator.
Well, give us a number.
Well, we're purchasing, the Mattingly property, which is, about, 48 acres. That one is.
10,000, 12,000 an acre.
Yeah, that one's $500,000. And then the,
It's around, right?
yeah, and the Angelini property is, $925,000 for about 53 acres.
So it's $18 an acre.
Yeah.
18,000, 12,000, 60,000.
18,000.
Well, you can see that the difference here, again, like I said, is the 40B. That is what, unfortunately, that is what's driving the cost on 150 Center Street. And we can dislike it. I don't like it. I don't like having to spend that amount of money. But the alternative of not acquiring the property and have it, be built up, losing that resource for our town, I think unfortunately it will be worth it for us to do. And looking back, 10 or 20 years from now, looking back, we'll be glad that we did buy it.
Just a quick question. Earlier, I think Joe had made reference to maybe a small community being built on the property as well? Is that part of?
I think what Joe is hoping is that somehow we could negotiate some other terms with the owner of that property, but I've personally negotiated with them, and what they want to do is get the 40B development permits. That's all they want to do. So unfortunately, it's a good idea, but it's not going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity to be your guest moderator, and I want
Just wait a moment, please.
Can I just ask your
We wanna thank
indulgence
you.
for one more moment?
And I want to thank her.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I'm very impressed with all your questions. You guys did a great job. And thank you Ruth, for letting me be here. Good luck with all your many decisions. And I just would like to point out, since you are all the civically minded people of Groveland, that the State League of Women Voters has on their website, lwvma.org, they have taken a wonderful effort to put together a voter's guide for the Senate race to fill Senator Kerry's seat. We know there's going to be a primary on April 30th. They've asked all of the 5 candidates questions on 5 major areas, economics, immigration, etc. And the candidates' responses, the 2 Democrats and the 3 Republicans, although one candidate did decline to provide responses. But if you go on the League State website, lwvma.org, you can see their responses and compare their answers, one candidate to the other. That is provided as a service to the voters of Massachusetts. So we hope maybe you will avail yourselves of that. good luck. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate it if you'd help
with the chairs.
Fine, and I was very happy.